I
And
mean, how do
I have a good team.
you Well, this is such an incredible film for you, AnnaLynne. I can't believe that. I mean, it surprises me with all of the deep intensity to it that you were able to tackle it, and you did it so beautifully. I must say, was there something about John Spare's script, or maybe even Tommy Stovall as a director, that really drew you to this part, or maybe it was Eve herself?
First of all, thank you. And I was very resistant at first, so it was my own resistance that made me know I had to do this film. And then the next layer was John. I mean, I told Tommy and Mark, the director and producer, I was like, I need to meet John. Is he coming to set? Like, I need to meet him. And he had, a week where he was on set with us. And I was like, I really love your brain. It is full of so much symbolism. You did something wonderful here. He was like, I was telling him things and he was like, you got that nuance. You got that. You picked up on that. And, so those moments were really, really special. And then I was just like, talk to me. Where did this come from in your brain? I need to understand, because he used something, so relevant in our world, to just grab us right at the beginning of that film. But then he kind of takes us on a journey of another thing that's been relevant in our world for centuries. And it doesn't, everybody tiptoes around talking about religion. They're like, oh, well, you don't want to hurt anybody. You don't want to offend anyone. They believe things. And it's so crazy that the truth can be offensive. I find that really interesting. I find it interesting that truth is ever off the table or in any way navigated. Well, isn't truth the most important thing? If a religion, how about this? I'll say, if a person that you're going on a date with says, I'm going to tell you the way I do life, you're not allowed to question me, or bad things will befall you, all your friends would be like, get away from this red
Red
flag.
flag.
What? Abort. Do not, do not go any further with this, right? So there needs to be a little accountability in the religion sector, in my opinion. And I have some personal bias because I've been through things, and I was really harmed by a pastor in a church when I went through the abuses I went through as a child. So I have really personal reasons for it. But then I just have a logical brain. I'm capable of critical thinking also. And when you see an organization, you see a corporation, or you see a cult or a religion allow within their ranks individuals who perpetrate abuses onto members of their congregation or their organization or their company. How many companies would we allow to stay in business? How many companies whose products that we buy would we continue to purchase if we found out that they have a bunch of pedophiles doing horrible things for centuries? Or, you know what I mean? Like, there's this strange energy we kind of bubble wrap religion with, and we kind of let them get away with stuff that we wouldn't let anything else get away with what we let them get away with. And they're tax exempt, which quite frankly, I think is ridiculous. If you have abuses in within your corporation, your organization, your religion, and you somehow are allowed to continue with what you do, you should certainly have to pay to a fund to provide the care for the individuals you've harmed. So I had a little bit of a personal reason for really appreciating some of the toxic theology that is addressed in this film. And if that makes me persona non grata, I'm okay with that. I'm kind of,
I was going to say, these are topics that I know from past interviews and things that you've done and that you've spoken out against before. So I know you weren't probably hesitant to take on this role, but maybe was there something about part of who you were as a person who was experiencing it that you brought to Eve? Or maybe did you talk to Tommy and be like, okay, this is my experience, could we maybe weave this in a little bit?
it was so interesting because she's pretty much as written. It was a very organic marriage of my experience and this character. And what was really the biggest thing on the table was me having to confront where she was confronting for me, where I was judging myself in ways that Eve portrays herself, where I was judging others and their actions in this regard, because religion was such a touchy topic for me for such a long time. I I've always loved Yeshua. I've always loved the prophet. I'm sorry, I call him Yeshua because that's his real name, and people have messed up my name since I was a kid. They're like, "Is your name AnnaLynne? AnnaLynne?" And I'm like, how do you get like it's Anna and Lynn? They're two very simple names to understand. They're put mushed together, like it's not hard. His name is not Jesus. His name is Yeshua. I love the teachings of Yeshua. I love him. I love everything that he was about. And I get personally a little offended on his behalf. He probably doesn't care, but I do. When his story is misrepresented or individuals on behalf of what he is encapsulated with is used against those for whom he came, right? So this film allowed me to step inside of a woman who believes in her faith the way I believe in the teachings of Yeshua. And I had to realize that Eve and I were kind of similar in some ways. And then I got to also witness how we're not. And one of the big ways, outside of obviously the things that she did, but one of the big ways that we're not alike is I don't have blind faith in anything or anyone, Yeshua included. I'm eyes wide open with all of those teachings. I just happen to, with my logical brain, agree with a lot of what he says. And that's what I think this conversation, or that's what I think this film can start a conversation for, is can you go through your own belief system, whether it's in a form of faith or if it's a belief system you hold about the world or your country or your heritage, whatever the theme is, can you separate the parts where information was put inside your mind from that which you decided to believe with your own sovereignty, with your own autonomy? And I don't feel like Eve could do that. I think Eve was absolutely a slave to her blind faith. And that's why she ultimately did what she did. Because when one version of blind faith didn't work for her, she swung the pendulum to the other side and took that faith to something else.
Well, I have to say there are some exceptionally tough scenes that I imagine were there for you, whether you're putting a knife to your throat, whether you're sitting in this interrogation talking with Dean Cain's character was just exceptional. Those are some difficult moments, so I imagine for you personally to sit through and experience for yourself. Was there a particular scene that was maybe toughest for you to film, or maybe one that you were, need a little meditation before and after to clear yourself from?
There was a scene, and it was difficult for a couple of reasons. The number one reason is I work with kids. I love kids. I've worked with children for the last 15 years, survivors of human trafficking, and they're my little heroes. They're so resilient, so wonderful, and I love them so much. And I love being with children because they're the wisest individuals on our planet. I'm like, adults, go away. I just want to hear from children. They are so clever, so innovative, so open, so loving, so compassionate, so wise. And I was teaching, it was a flashback scene, and my character she's pregnant, and she's teaching her class of students. And I had to have a miscarriage, right? I have to have this moment where I lose the baby in front of all these babies, in front of all these children. So I have to do this, and I was trying to tell the producers and director, I'm like, guys, we need to let the children know that I'm not really hurt. I'm so we had a full conversation. Some of the kids were a little scared. So we kind of made a point to bring everyone in and let them know if they had questions, they could ask questions. But even with that, it was really hard for me to fully commit to what I needed to do as an actress in front of all the little boobas because I didn't want to scare them and do anything but let them have the enjoyment and the fun of being on a film and what that was, how exciting that was for them. So that was hard, and the scene that followed it out in the hallway was really hard. That was, I can't imagine, being in that and it happening the way that it did. So the scenes that followed that, those were all very, very confronting. And I know that I know so many women who have gone through though that and oh, the way women soldier on, I'm just ever in awe of the feminine in our world.
Amen. Hope lingers with audiences that explore this beautiful film condition of return. Is it some sort of seek mental help when you need it? Is it don't be afraid to question what is really put in front of you? Or is it all of the above? Or is it something else in particular?
Definitely all of the above. I think the biggest thing I would invite audiences of Condition of Return to consider is have a conversation with people that you do not agree with. Challenge yourself to bring these difficult topics to the table and don't tiptoe around the truth. Find it, hold to it, be true to it, because nothing else is real. Everything else is an illusion. This film, as suspension of disbelief moment over here to wow, this is way too relevantly real over here, and everywhere in between, to all of those points in this film, I would say you have a major dinner table conversation that you can have with this. And the power of the energy of conversation and connection over these topics, with the understanding that no judgment is going to be held and we're just going to talk. I think that would be my request.
Absolutely a very poignant film in so many regards, as you touched on, whether it's mental health, whether it's, question things that have been indoctrined, told you as fact. There's so many topics of discussion in this beautiful film, and you are exceptional, exceptional in this role as Eve. And I just imagine how difficult it was for you to slip out of her at the end of the day, or maybe it was as easy because you've put your part of that part of your past away and healed from it, or and it's just an exceptional role for you, AnnaLynne. So I'm thankful that I got a chance to chat with you about this beautiful opportunity that you were a part of.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you using your platform to further this conversation that is really important to me. It wasn't easy to slip out of her. The energy was intense. But I did make sure to have a lot of salt baths. I,
Whatever you need to do to just decompress and
yeah.
be AnnaLynne again. It's just you do so much work on the behalf of human trafficking and on behalf of people who have had sexual abuse. So I'm just so proud of you personally, and always so supportive of the wonderful work you do.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you for
Anytime,
you.
anytime. Be safe, be well, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.